Okay guys, finally got that dang stonewashing out of the way. Pulled this out. Turned out pretty good, I guess. This is also going to be kind of a little bit of a review slash give you some tips, things like that with that particular stonewasher system. Here's the pocket clip. Now in my first video, I think I cut a lot of it out. It was like almost, I think it was over 10 minutes, and because I was checking it all the time, and it turned into a little bit more of an ordeal than I anticipated, so I cut out a lot of it. So I think I just do kind of when I first turn it on, and that's it. Let's just say this took, here, let's take a look at the blade. Blade turned out real nice. However, the blade was probably in there for about 8 hours. Yeah, I know. I can hear you through the internet gasping. Yeah, these were in there for probably 5 hours. All this 5-6 hours. So it took a really long time. However, I will say that even though this was in there that long, it probably didn't need to be, because one thing that I've come to realize with that stonewasher is it's probably not going to give you that really deep, multi-layered stonewash that you get out of the factory. And so what I mean by I didn't need to leave it in that long is I kept hoping if I left it in there longer it would stonewash more, but it didn't. So I probably could have taken it out after like 2 or 3 hours, and I think it looked about like this. And the reason for that, oh, actually, I've got a good example right here. The reason for that is to get a big, burly stonewash, kind of like what I have on my Roadhouse. You know, I mean, it is softer steel, 154 cm. However, this is titanium. This is even softer, and you can see how stonewash just doesn't even compare. I mean, this one just looks matte with some shiny flecks on it, whereas this looks like a full-on awesome stonewash. And let's compare blades. This one actually looks a little closer, but like I said, I left it in for a really long time. But the main reason why is when I stonewashed this, I did it manually. So I basically put a big plastic container with the blade in it, a bunch of rocks, which are heavier than that ceramic media, but I'll touch on that in a minute. A bunch of rocks, and I didn't shake it. I, bounced it back and forth. So those rocks were like, just nailing this steel, just hitting this steel really hard. And that stonewasher, it doesn't do it. Stuff like skitters on top, like that. But it just doesn't get that, that impact to kind of get that really, although I don't know. This blade does kind of prove me otherwise, but it could be for other reasons, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But it is nice because you can just fill it with multiple things and let it run. It's very loud, let it run, and go do something else, come back, albeit hours later, and it's done. Do have a couple things that I did towards the end that I think maybe helped. It's hard to say for sure. For one thing, you'll notice that the logos are gone on here. But it is not because the stonewash machine took it off. I actually got so frustrated and fed up that I took a Dremel to it and manually removed it, which basically reset that portion to shiny steel. And that's part of the reason why this had to go in for so long, because once I did that, I was basically like starting over. So I really should have done that from the beginning. And that may be a recommendation for you. I don't know. Do what you want. Tread at your own risk. But I personally wish I would have done that from the get-go. Then it would have been done, I think, a lot quicker. Second thing I did, which I think helped, was I put actual little stones in there, pebbles in there. Another thing is I made sure it wasn't too full. The fuller it is, I think I mentioned this in the first video, the fuller it is, the more weight it's trying to push around, so it's less likely to, pop the media up and let it kind of come down and hit a little harder. And another thing is don't use rem oil. That is a bad idea. I don't know what's in that stuff, but it can't be like true oil. that it dries out, and what it does is it turns the dust. Well, and this is kind of a problem with everything. And if somebody knows a solution to this, or even just a tip, a hint, anything, the problem I'm running into, and I ran into it with a manual Stonewasher too, although it's not as big of a deal because it's just a cheap plastic container with a bunch of rocks I found. But this one, I want to use this again and again. It costs like $70 to get it rolling. But the problem I run into is when I add oil, that oil mixes with the powder that's breaking off of the media, the ceramic, right? Every time the ceramic's hitting, it's making dust and stuff. And it mixes with that and it turns into this sludge. And the problem with the REM oil is that it turned in such a thick sludge. It was literally like coating the media and the blade in this thick layer of this dark gray stuff, and it wasn't allowing it to stonewash. I mean, it was just mucking everything up. And I switched to WD-40 later on. That seemed to work better. However, I'm still kind of running into that issue. It's not caking on like the REM oil did with it, but it is definitely turning into goop in there. And I can see that eventually, I could probably do another stonewashing, but then it's going to need to be cleaned. So does anybody have like either a quick way to prevent it from happening? I don't see how there would be, but a quick way to clean that out or something, because it seems like a pain in the ass to get that cleaned out. Yeah, if anybody knows, let me know. I haven't put this back together yet because I'm actually going to sharpen the blade without putting it together. It's just easier. It's lighter. It holds in the clamp better. Easier to maneuver. It doesn't, want to tip over, and it's already taken apart, so might as well. But needless to say, I mean, it's obviously extremely dull. Extremely dull. However, I mean, I don't have any chips, or, my tip's slightly rounded, but it's not too bad. So it held up well. It definitely added more stonewashiness to it. And it seemed like after I did the WD-40 and added the pebbles is when it really kicked it up a notch. And that just so happened to be when I kind of took this out too. Mainly, I just got a little paranoid because we've got the detent ball. It's got a carbonized lock face. I didn't want to beat the crap out of the TI, so I kind of took it out. And I think it looks okay. It's not quite the stonewash I originally was going for, but it kind of maintains some of that dull bead blast type feeling that it originally had, but it has kind of the stonewashing, which will help with the wear and kind of just adds another cool look to it. And then, just stonewashing this to make it all kind of match. I think it's pretty cool. So that's that, guys. Oh yeah, another thing I wanted to say. At least mine, after I ran it for a number of hours, started like shaking all over the place and moving around, and the top piece was like spinning when it was turned on, and that's because it got loose. So if you have one of those and you run into that problem, it's actually, and if you go back to my first video, you'll see it. I didn't feel like shooting out in the garage right now, but it's when you open it, the same thing that you screw that wing nut onto to hold the lid down. That same screw thread, it's got a little sleeve on it. You take that off, and it's meant to, that sleeve is meant to, when you have it closed, it puts pressure on the sleeve, which puts pressure on the bolt at the bottom to keep it from coming undone. For whatever reason, it didn't really happen in my case. Maybe because I turned it on without the lid on. Maybe that's what my problem was. I did that a few times to check it out, but that came kind of loose. So you just gotta take that sleeve off, crank on it. Actually, I had to clamp the bolt to keep it steady, and then crank on that screw down there, or bolt. Sorry. Yeah. So, did I call that a bolt? Anyways, so yeah, just a little tip for you. But yeah, pretty cool device. I'm definitely gonna have to start stonewashing some crap to get my money out of it. That's for sure. There's always stuff I want to stonewash, but I can be, I just get too lazy to do it manually because it's a pain, and it's just as loud, except it's got to be right next to your freaking head when you're doing it. Alright guys, take it easy. That is what it came out to be so far. I will get this sharpened up, put it back together. We can take a look at it all completed. I really do actually like the way this blade turned out. You can faintly see kind of where, if you know where to look, you can see where I manually took off those logos. They actually came off really easy with, sorry, I know I said I was going to end this, but it actually came off really easy with that Dremel. I just used, I mean, it wasn't a sandpaper. It was, I don't know what it is. It's like a really dense green material. It almost feels like it's a plastic type stuff. And generally, it'll kind of buff things. You know, it's a very fine grit. So you do that after you do the stones and things. And it took it off well. Like I said, my only regret is that I wish I had done that from the beginning, so that, you know, I could have been, because yeah, you can kind of see it right there. It'll just kind of, it'll catch the gleam longer than the rest of the blade is what it does. Just barely. Like right there. But I think once it's together, and if you don't know exactly where to look, you won't see it. I could have left it in for another 45 minutes. Maybe I should have, but I'm not going to. Alright guys, this time I'm out for good. Later.